presented by Dano's Seasoning. Yum, yum, get you some.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Sun Belt Syndicate. As you can see, we have a special guest with us tonight. Oh no, it's Trojan Joe.
Yeah, all the App State boys and girls who are looking forward to another session of just having their egos massaged. It ain't happening tonight. TJ's not here to wipe away your tears. Trojan Joe is here. The new sheriff is back in town, and I'm excited to be on as a little guest co-host for the Sun Belt Syndicate. And ready to get it on, talk about some Sunbelt football. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There was one person who came to mind immediately, and you fit the description. I'm glad you brought your sheriff hat with you tonight, by the way.
Of course.
Our resident Texas State fan, Artie Cat, jumping in, saying, hello, Dominic. What's going on, Artie Cat? And we've got, these people are familiar to you, right, Joe?
The Hawkaholics are back, man. Love those guys. Hey, thanks, Hawkaholics, for jumping on. It was fun being on y'all's podcast as well. I'm going to see if Dom can keep up. We definitely had a lot of fun, and it was a great show.
Yeah, definitely one that they were talking about the game that already happened, but definitely worth a couple laughs if you go check out Joe on the Hawkaholics show from last week. Thanks again for those of you tuning in and checking out this and not seeing TJ. He's a little bit under the weather, and we got somebody who's going to bring some life and some fun to this show. I mean, I'll see if I can get him to trash talk a little bit. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Oh, man. But, we are going to have some fun here tonight, Joe and I. And before we get going too far along, we want to be sure to give a shout out to our sponsors, first and foremost, collegefootballdogs.com. The official partnership with the Maxwell Football Club continues to do its thing as the brand new Maxwell Football Club website was launched at about 3:00 this afternoon Eastern time, I believe. It looks phenomenal. It's a great partnership with College Football Dogs, so we will be heavily helping them out, and they will be, helping us out in return as we continue to kind of build both brands here and go along. Also, our sponsors at the top of the page, W Energy, Fanplex Graphics, got to show Joe something here in a second, TSN Off Road, and of course, Dano's Seasoning. Check the link out in the show description for this. Joe, I got a good one for you from Fanplex. You got anything from Fanplex yet?
No, not yet. I've seen some cool looking stuff, but I don't have anything yet. Oh, nice. There you go. See, I mean, that's what you need.
Yep. Battle ready, baby. Battle ready. That's I like that one.
I think TJ took one look at that and got sick immediately. Like he just couldn't handle it.
Oh, man. Well, we fixed it. We got him feeling better with this one. So you had the black for Troy and the white with App State. This one's cool. I like that one a lot. And then, of course, you've got the one my son requested, Joey California himself here. So if you haven't yet gone to Fanplex, you can get these things bigger, by the way. I got the smallest size because I wanted to eventually get all three of them up here again. I'm still trying to figure out a way to do that on my background without ruining these things because I want to be able to have them for a long period of time. But you can get these things framed, unframed. Go check out fanplexgraphics.com to get your Troy and App State posters. Obviously, they're going to try and get some other teams along the way. I think I believe they have like K-State. Not a Sun Belt team, obviously, but if you have a K-State fan in your life, maybe go check out those as well. But, Joe, we had some fun last week, and we had some interaction on something that we do weekly. And I'll put that up on the big board now as we take a look here at TJ and I's power rankings. I told everybody we'd save some of the explanations for this show. And as we already know, TJ won't be on here tonight. So you can pick apart his. You're not allowed to pick apart mine. But no, I guess I'll start off. And to the viewers who are listening in instead of seeing this, Coastal Carolina, the Ragin' Cajuns, and Texas State are the top three for both TJ and myself in the exact order that I just mentioned. There was a flip-flop on TJ's, though. Coastal did jump the Cajuns this week in his power rankings. Then I've got Georgia Southern, App State, Marshall, and JMU rounding out my top 7, which remains the exact same as the week before. To me, of those top 7, I didn't have anything crazy going on that I felt the need to move anybody up or down. But as you can see for the people visually, pretty much everybody else, except for Southern Miss, they remain in last place for me. Everybody else moved around a little bit. And Joe, you can go ahead and let me have it. I've got Troy sitting down at 12 and moving down, even though I will say I was impressed overall with how you guys looked against Iowa. So go ahead and start us off there. What do you think about the Troy rankings? Because TJ's got them all the way down at 14, which I don't agree with, but let's see what you have to say.
Yeah, well, he's a hater, and that's something that he's going to have to deal with his whole life. And that's, that's not my problem. It's so hard. What y'all are doing is incredibly hard. The Troy boys would never do it. Because, what are you valuing? Like, so let's look at Lala. You both have Lala at 2, right? And they love that. They're big fans. Next time you're in Lafayette, call it Lala. They are huge fans of that. Really, you're valuing the fact that they beat Grambling and Kennesaw. That's what makes them the second best. And I realize everybody has a short resume right now.
Yes.
But does going to a Power 4 team and losing by 10 points actually mean more for a team's future than going to Grambling and winning by 40 points? Is all of a sudden, because here's what TJ is going to do. I'm going to be rabbit TJ if you're old enough to have watched 8 Mile, okay? Because what's going to happen is we're going to beat Florida A&M. Okay, we're going to beat them impressively. And then TJ is going to come on this show and go, hoopla, hoopity hoopla. And all of a sudden, Troy is going to be ranked number 8. And why? Because we beat Florida A&M. Florida A&M's not any good compared to anybody they played. They beat Norfolk State. They beat South Carolina State by 2 points. Miami absolutely dog-walked Florida A&M. Up and down the field. They scored as many points as they wanted to and then stopped. That's how bad they beat this squad. But all of a sudden, we're going to beat FAMU, and we're going to be a lot better in TJ's mind than we are right now. So to me, this whole thing is just absurd. Moving USA up, moving South Alabama up for what they did, when what they did should cause us all as a conference to be completely embarrassed. It should cause them to be embarrassed. And I've seen the little blurbs, and I'll just take a second here. I know I'm hijacking the show. And obviously, I don't like these guys, okay? If I see
I've never heard disdain for them from you. I'm not sure what's going on.
If I see a guy with a Jaguar shirt walking on water, I'm going to assume it's because he doesn't know how to swim, okay? I do not like them. I don't have anything positive to say about them. But when you play a team that's ranked as the 6th worst team in all of college football, including Division III, a team that the year before played 6 games, all that they lost before forfeiting because of the tragic death of a player on that team. Yeah. So basically, you have a brand new squad that you are paying to come to your IKEA Erector Set Stadium in Mobile, Alabama, and then you're going to beat them 87-10, and all of a sudden we're all supposed to go, way to go, Jags, nice. No, that's embarrassing. You paid these people to come there. It's time to start running the clock. It's time to put the punter in at quarterback, run the left tackle up as a fullback. I don't care what you do. You don't score that many points on a team that at that point is basically defenseless. To me, that doesn't say anything about how bad a team Northwestern State is. It says a lot about the character of this team in Mobile. And I think we all, little green arrows next to their name is definitely not what we need. They need to be just dropped off and punished for a week by not even appearing in the power rankings. But that's just me. But overall, look, TJ's rankings just don't make any sense. I can't start at a place of just nonsense. I mean, why is Georgia State just beat Vanderbilt? That's the biggest win in the history of that entire program, and they're the 12th best team.
Bigger than Tennessee? I think Tennessee at Tennessee is a bigger win.
You think instead of having Vandy at home, do you know how much all 7 of their fans enjoyed that, having that game at home? They were excited by that, okay? And they can't drive all the way to Tennessee. It's a long way. I mean, I think there's a lot of this that to me just doesn't make any sense. The good news is all of this is going to start to shake out. It's what I love about college football. Still, even to this day, everybody has complaints about this and that. At the end of the day, all these logos we see up here, we're all going to play each other. If Texas State actually is number 3, we're going to find out because they're going to come to Troy, Alabama on a Thursday night, and we're going to kick that ball off. And for 60 minutes, we're going to fight like you know what. And we're going to find out who the better team is. So that's what I love about college football. And I think it will be fun for y'all to bring these back up in 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think there will be a lot of places where you go, oh, my goodness, I can't believe, you'll probably be saying, I can't believe I had Georgia State at 10 when they should have been at 17 because they'll probably have a terrible year the rest of the year. Overall, those are all my comments.
There you go. Well, I think part of the positioning actually for some aspects of both of our rankings had to do with where we started teams off, right? Had the Cajuns started at 10 and beat the 2 teams you talked about with Grambling and Kennesaw, they probably don't jump all that high. But they did start near the top of our rankings. So we haven't really punished them yet either, because to me, they've done exactly what they needed to do. They didn't just barely escape Grambling. That probably would have dropped them. And obviously winning on the road against Kennesaw. Yeah, Kennesaw is not great, but they got it done. Texas State didn't drop. I didn't punish for a 3-point. I think it was a 3-point loss to Arizona State, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought they had a chance to win it, so I thought that team was very good. Arizona State, that is, and I think Texas State is right on par with them. I think that game showed that. So I didn't really harm their rankings for a loss, even though probably could have. But I guess the aspect of that is, the teams below them didn't do anything to jump above them either. So there was really just no point to move that. Again, my moves are all really on the other side. And Georgia State did move up with victory over Vanderbilt. However, I want people to temper expectations. Like you said, maybe certainly the biggest home victory in Georgia State history. I'm not sure it's the biggest victory in Georgia State history overall. I think Tennessee on the road, when a lot of people, I don't know what the spread was on that game. I would assume it was probably more than what this Vanderbilt game spread was.
You're probably right.
You're looking at a Vanderbilt program that since 2019, before that game, since 2019 was 14-55. So no, I'm not blown away that they beat Vandy. I'm glad. I was surprised, but I wasn't blown away. I mean, I knew that, Vandy may have been quite overvalued, just as Georgia Tech was overvalued after the first win of the season as well. So yes, Georgia State goes up because they did get an impressive victory still. I just don't think we're not talking about a ranked Vanderbilt team. We're not talking about a Vanderbilt team that's likely to go in there and place in the top half of the SEC still, to me personally. So yeah, they only jumped up so much. Arkansas State, as we were talking before the show got live, Arkansas State kept it close in score to Michigan. We'll break that down a little bit more when we get into their game into this week. And Troy, probably shouldn't have punished them, but it's really more of one of those things where the teams below them kind of won. It's not so much that I wanted to move Troy down for anything. I thought their impressive performance against Iowa was better than I expected them to do after what we'd seen in the first 2 weeks. ODU can't get off the snide and get the victory either, so essentially they moved down as well. Southern Miss didn't do anything to help their resume as far as I was concerned, so they're staying in last place. And yeah, the Jaguars did jump up. It was more for the fact that they won, and they won easily without any question. Gio Lopez was back. They were kind of firing on all cylinders. yes, it's against a team that had all the troubles and aspects that you already talked about, but it's also still hard to score that many points in a game. I believe what is the most ever points scored by a Sun Belt team. Is that right, Joe?
Yes, I believe so. I think it's the most points scored by a Division I team in a long time. They gave the number. I don't remember exactly how many years it was, but it's been quite a while.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense then. But TJ, I had a lot of people question TJ's rankings, but I will say his explanation so far is that as a former player who played FCS football, right? He never played at the FBS level as we know it now, back then. So he definitely values victories over anything else. That doesn't explain every single ranking he's got over here. So he's got some other aspects that are obviously involved in his, and I can't speak to what those are exactly. But yeah, I mean, the teams that haven't won are at the bottom of his, and the teams that have won a couple games are a little bit higher. So yeah, I mean, we're not going to have the same, but again, this is why it's fun. This is what we do. It involves people feeling one way or another, and we're okay with that. Oh man,
we'll see. We'll see how okay we are when TJ gets back in the office and listens to this. I don't know. He might not be happy with the way I discussed his rankings.
I think the Marshall fans are a little upset. He's got them down at 9. I will say that one seems like now I only have them at 6. So I don't have them crazy higher, but I think Marshall fans are wondering, maybe they should be above Georgia Southern, Arkansas State in his. I'm sure they actually think they should be higher overall. We'll see. But
they always do. I mean, talk about
true
the most entitled fan base in our conference. And yeah, I mean, they probably think they should be number 1 because they beat Stony Brook. But other than that, how many points is TJ or Dom or anybody else supposed to give you for losing to Virginia Tech? I mean, that's you don't get a lot. You don't get a ton of points for that. That's so. I don't think, to me, Marshall's in the middle of the pack, exactly where you and TJ basically have them between 6 to 9. That to me makes a lot of sense. And if you're a Marshall fan, I think you go, hey, from here, all we got to do is win, and we'll be in position to get near the top of the pack. And there's divisions and all that, of course, as well. So you don't have to worry about, it's not like you've got to be number 1 or number 2 here. For the last few years, I feel like the West has been a little bit stronger with a couple teams, and we've had years where the East was stronger with a couple teams. So who knows how this is going to play out? But yeah, I think if Marshall fans are upset, then they're just being upset because that's their national pastime.
There might be some that jump on after hearing you say that.
I would love to meet them.
There we go. So Sunday, Marv and I went over a little bit of this, but since you were on and TJ and I hadn't discussed it, and obviously you and I haven't discussed it, just an overview so far. Obviously, we've got a lot of matchups that are going to go towards this weekend as well. What are your thoughts on where we sit as a conference overall versus other conferences? As you can see, that left side's a little cleaner there against Conference USA, now the SEC actually being a part of that win total. The American and the FCS, yeah, not so pretty on the right with the ACC, the MAC even, which whatever. Big 12 only won against the MAC in the Big 12, but 0-2 versus the Big 10, and the Mountain West just 1-2. I mean, is that kind of expected? I know obviously you guys were hoping to pull off a little bit of a shock up there in Big 10 country this past weekend, but what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think we're having less of a problem this year in the Sun Belt. Obviously, we all want to have the big shock games that, get on ESPN. But where I think we've lost some focus maybe is we shouldn't be 0-1 to the MAC. We should be beating MAC schools. We shouldn't be 1-2 to the Mountain West. We should be beating Mountain West schools convincingly. And part of that is Troy. Troy lost to Nevada. The Fighting Colin Kaepernicks came to Troy, and we couldn't keep them out of the end zone, and couldn't score enough to beat them. So that to me is more of a problem. I am glad to see us with a winning record against the American. The American is trying very hard to make kind of an argument that, well, they're the heir apparent to become, if there is going to be a fifth power conference, it's going to be them. I don't think that's necessarily true. Show me an American Athletic Conference school, and I'll show you a program that I think is has a better media market than it does an offensive scheme usually.
Yeah.
The rest of it I think is Big 10, Big 12, ACC, SEC. That's kind of what you expect to see, but we got to handle our business. Georgia State beating Vanderbilt is great, and we can all get excited about that. But in a way, it's actually less important than us focusing on being competitive against these other Group of Five schools, so that we cement ourselves as the premier Group of Five conference, especially now that there is a spot for such a thing in the playoffs. So it's going to be very important that when people look at the Sun Belt and they look at the MAC, they go, wow, the Sun Belt's such a better conference. And one of the ways they're going to do that is head-to-head matchups. So that's what I hope we start get coaching staffs back in and even get fans. One part of the problem is fans. Sun Belt fans get really excited when their school wins these big money games. They don't get as excited when their team beats Ohio. But the fact is, beating Ohio is really, really important. So yes. We need to do a good job of messaging to our fan bases and saying these are important games. They mean a lot. And if you want a shot to have a special season and go to the playoffs, then that game against Ohio is probably actually a lot more important than a game against Ohio State.
Yeah. I'll touch on two things since I've shared most of my feelings, but I do like what you said again about the American. What's funny is all those people that think the American should be the next step into the P5 or P4, I guess being part of the P5 again. If that were to be the case, then why are all your top teams looking to jump to the Power Four conferences? If you thought you were so good and that conference from top to bottom was going to be so good and be thought of differently and in that power light, why are you trying to leave? So to me, no, the American, it's laughable if they think they're just going to take their whole conference and jump it up. Could a couple of their teams make that jump? Sure. I think Memphis is the first one I'd pick. East Carolina traditionally over the years has been one that probably could be plucked for that. I don't think they're at that level right now, but Joe, as you know, a hell of a baseball program down there in Greenville, North Carolina, and one that would be a perfect fit for the Sun Belt as far as established fan base, a rowdy fan base, one that cares about football and baseball tremendously. Unfortunately, like most of the Sun Belt, not the greatest following for basketball. But yeah, I think that one, you add a team like that in Memphis somehow to the Sun Belt, and you're looking at a conference much more aligned to become a power conference than what the American currently resides in. As far as, FCS take care of business. Luckily, we haven't had any losses there. And yeah, I think you're right. Those games against those peer institutions or peer conferences, as we will, they are important because I don't think people are going to look at the eye test, right? Joe, you sat there and watched, I'm sure you were in the stadium for the Nevada-Troy game, right?
I was, yep.
Okay. And so for me, from the eye test, and even if you go look at the statistics, those are like mirror images of each other. And the only reason that game didn't go to overtime is a missed 2-point conversion at the very end. So yeah, it ultimately comes down as a loss, but it's essentially a coin toss as far as which team was better that night, which team would be better if they played a week later, So yes, I agree with you. It is important to win those games because people aren't going to go back and do the eye test. They're not going to go see what all the statistics were. They're going to see, hey, Mountain West victory over the Sun Belt, Right. So yeah, I absolutely agree. It's unfortunate that, the MAC and the Mountain West have winning records over us. I don't know if Ohio would have won that game had Gio Lopez been on the field. I'll say that. And I think I said that already, but, we'll see. Now it's Pac-12 noise. Yeah, I guess, even Texas State is making some noise about wanting to go west. And part of me can't blame them. I mean, this is the first year that they've really been an institution as far as football goes in the Sun Belt. I feel like last year they kind of rounded into form after a lot of hype and thoughts that they could get there at some point someday. DJ Kenny seems to have them in that spot. I don't know. Some of the Texas State players, Joe, previously have said that they see Troy as their biggest rival. Do you guys feel anywhere close to that way? I mean, I know who your thought
Texas State feels like we're there. That's hilarious.
That wasn't the fans; it was the players. So those aspects can be different, but that's what the players did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I kept getting my butt whooped by the same group of guys, I probably wouldn't like them either. I mean, as you know. I don't know. That's certainly not the way the fan base feels. I went out to San Marcos last time we played for the first time because I want to make sure I see all the Sunbelt campuses, and I was impressed. I didn't have anyone. Their fans were we sat kind of behind where the students sat, and they had been, let's say, marinating all day, getting ready for the game. And so as they were leaving, when they realized the game was over, which was fairly early, they had some words, but that's fine. That's what I expect. So that doesn't bother me. But I don't know that our players feel that way. I'll have to look into that. As far as them going to the Pac-12, I've said this in several of the Sunbelt kind of larger Facebook groups, and I always get in trouble for saying it. And Artie Cat, I apologize, buddy. But, if Texas State wants to go to the Pac-12, let me know. I'll fly out there on Southwest and help you guys pack. You're 700 miles from a divisional opponent in Troy. And for what the Sun Belt has been trying to do, you just don't make any sense geographically. And you don't have there's no friends out there. You don't have, it's not like, well, here's our little group of Texas schools, which is what when I came to Troy, and the Sun Belt had a little kind of Texas contingent of schools. And you had, not only did you have that, but you had New Mexico, you had Idaho, you had this kind of made sense. Now Texas State doesn't make any sense. So that's what I find hilarious is, there's these guys that get on these Facebook groups from Texas State and they want to be trolls and all this and blah, 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 this and that about the Sun Belt. And I think most people in the Sun Belt secretly feel the way I do, which is like, hey, buddy, why don't y'all just leave, go elsewhere? And if things are so bad and you're just gonna run the conference, go do it somewhere else, so we don't all have to spend our money getting our women's golf program out to Schlitterbahn, okay? Because it really would. Yeah, oh yeah, hey, it's a great water park. But I would just rather have the money for like a new biology lab or something. Not that I would have been found in one of those when I was a student. But that's just kind of my thought. Texas State is great. I thought the campus was great. The fans. There's great tradition there. I just wonder, with all the great work we've done geographically, do they make a lot of sense in our footprint versus Kennesaw State, versus UAB, versus Jacksonville State, versus even, and Sunbelt fans are really going to hate me for saying this, do we finally offer absolution to either Western Kentucky or Middle Tennessee State? And bring another state into the footprint, but one that is drivable. I think that's one of the huge factors that makes the Sun Belt so great right now compared to other conferences is if it's a conference game, you can get in your car and drive. It might not be a comfortable drive. There might be a couple stops at Buc-ee's that you need to do, but you're going to make it in a day. You won't have to take off Monday from work. You'll be able to make it back on Sunday. So that to me is really, whereas Texas State's a great trip. But you got to fly out there and that's for Troy. I mean, imagine if I'm a Marshall fan, or if I'm an App State fan. I mean, if I'm an App State fan, I have so many things I have to do. First, I have to be convinced that, men can travel through the air. Second, I have to be convinced that planes are safe because I've never seen one before in my life. And third, then I've got to get on one to get out to San Marcos. And I mean, it's going to scare me to death. So that's my reasoning when I talk about Texas State that way. Already, Cat, I apologize. I wish you guys nothing but the best. But again, do give me a call. I'll bring some Bud Lights and a pizza out there and help you guys get moving.
Well, okay, here, I'll put a contingent on this. What if the Sun Belt makes a power move and says, we want UTSA in as a travel partner / another Texas school, build the brand further in Texas type of thing? Doesn't help with the travel aspect. I understand that, but it would help with maybe having Texas State stay and maybe be enough to bring UTSA in, saying, hey, you got a big rivalry that people really get into. Plus, you guys are both brands. At least UTSA is a bigger brand right now. Texas State, if they stay the course, who knows? They have to keep Coach GJ Kenny if they want to do that. To be honest, coming in 2 years, what he does there, if he leaves after this season, that's not easy. We've seen that. You're seeing that now at Troy. A couple other teams in Sun Belt have seen that this offseason as well. But is that something that may change your mind a little bit if we add a second Texas school and those two Texas schools happen to be close to each other?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I mean, I think that's what you got to have. If you're going to make it work, bring in somebody for them to have a natural rival. I mean, that tells you something, right? The fact that the story you just told me about Texas State fans or Texas State players saying, well, Troy feels like our biggest rival. Well, that's not healthy for a conference, unless you're the Big Ten or whatever, and you're talking you're USC and Michigan. I don't know, but when you're schools of this size and this magnitude, Texas State deserves to have a conference foe that their fans can drive to, and UTSA would be great. I mean, I'm really, I know Texas is a gigantic state. I've lived in Texas twice in my life. And so I know it's not, just pick any school in Texas, but I mean, in a way, I even think that, I mean, even if you somehow, got back a hold of North Texas or something like that, if that made the TV market guys really happy, at least if there was somebody else out there and it wasn't, you pass through Lafayette, Louisiana, and there's an old dusty wooden sign that says, 400 miles till your next Sunbelt destination. That's what we got to get rid of. We've got to give them some type of community out there. And it really is unfair because we all have it, Yeah. I mean, I'm when I think of Texas State fans, I bet they don't understand why the Sunbelt is so cool. Because I go to Walmart or I go to Buffalo Wild Wings in Montgomery, Alabama, a place that Sunbelt fans just love when it comes to baseball. And I probably, before I leave the store, see 3, 4, 5, 6 other Sunbelt shirts.
Wow.
Or paraphernalia. So, I mean, we've got people, we're surrounded by this conference. So
speaking of that, there you go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we even have COVID Carolina beach chickens in there, although they won't show up if they're afraid they might lose. But they even those guys will show up in the Walmart to try to see if they can buy Grayson McCall some credits. But, we see that. We see the life of the conference. If you go to San Marcos and you run into a Troy fan or an App State fan, your thought is going to be, hey, we must be playing them tomorrow because otherwise this guy wouldn't be here.
True. That's a great point.
That to me, it almost makes me feel bad for them because they're not getting that cool experience of bumping into a guy in the cereal aisle and being like, man, y'all got us this year. Yeah, well, you got us 2 years ago. I was there. And I mean, that's a really cool part of college football. And I don't think it's fair to ask them to give that up.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you on that. That makes perfect sense. So I think we've spent enough time on that because we could go all night on that one singular topic, as we both know. It's something that won't end until it ends, which I don't know if that's even in sight at this point. Okay, so again, for people that are tuning in here, We do our offensive and defensive player of the week. We don't do the special teams. Sorry. But this week, we're going with Christian Valor. Now, that is not what I would have assumed the way you pronounce his last name to be, but that's what they were saying all night when I tuned into that Vanderbilt game. He is the biggest reason, maybe singularly, as your quarterback often is, for winning big games. 26 of 41 for 269 yards, 3 touchdowns, only 1 interception. His rushing yards are a little skewed here. Technically, he rushed 2 times for 4 yards and a touchdown. However, as a quarterback often does, you lose that sack yardage. So he had some runs that were a little bit longer than those, but also getting into the end zone 4 total times himself, throwing an absolute dime to the back corner of the end zone to help win on that last drive going forward. The pass was fantastic. I don't think he really could have put it anywhere else. Kudos to the wide receiver for tucking it in and get it over the pylon as well. But the placement of the ball was phenomenal. I was really impressed with this kid's game. I've been impressed with him already this season because I felt like he's shown me strokes throughout the game that, that's the kind of play you need to make. Maybe, a wide receiver didn't catch it or the ball was just a tad behind, but, he's got the thought process there. He's got the experience from the big schools coming in. But I know Troy fan Trojan Joe feels a little differently about maybe who should have been the offensive player of the week. So I'm going to let him talk to you about who he thought should have been the offensive player.
Yeah, Dom, what would you do without me, buddy? I'm going to go ahead and fix this. And I'm also going to go ahead and name your very first Sunbelt special teams player of the week. Look at all these favorites I'm doing for you, man. So the real offensive player of the week is not this very nice gentleman who has a lot of hair gel that you can see on your screen now. It actually should be Devontae Ross, wide receiver for the Troy Trojans. 5 catches, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches of over 60 yards. Just played absolutely lights out, kept getting behind Iowa, and really was the reason Troy was able to stick with the Hawkeyes. And then for the first ever Sunbelt Syndicate Special Teams Player of the Game brought to you by the Troy Boys, we're going to go ahead and give that one also to Devontae Ross right before halftime. Did a punt return, 77 yards for a touchdown. Absolutely turned on the afterburners. First special teams touchdown for a Troy Trojan since 2018 when we beat Nebraska. So an absolute amazing performance from Devontae Ross. Prepare, if you're watching this Troy team and your team is coming up against us, watch out for Devontae Ross. He is an absolute weapon, and his season is just getting started. I think that was his coming out party, and we're going to see a lot more from him.
What year is he?
That is a great question. I'm going to guess, and no, I'm not. He is a junior. Okay. So we have perhaps one more year of him. I would think if you made me guess, I would say if Chris Lewis is able to return to the team next year, obviously many of your listeners would know Chris Lewis diagnosed with bone cancer in his legs, has gone through 10 weeks of chemotherapy treatment as well as surgery to remove a tumor. And so this year he is a student assistant on the team. Next year plans on playing. If he comes back and is anywhere close to his previous level of skill, then I think you probably see Devontae Ross leave, look for greener pastures. There just won't be enough football for the both of them because they're both very similarly styled wide receivers. If something were to happen, God forbid, and Chris Lewis were not able to return or they decided it wasn't safe for him to return, I think you could see Devontae stick it out. Why go and fight to be the third best wide receiver in Wisconsin when you can put up absolutely first or second round numbers at Troy because he's got that capability. 5'11", 161 pounds, a Georgia native, and just absolutely, too fast for anybody to catch. So yeah. I really enjoyed watching him against Iowa, and I think he's got a bright future. No offense to this gentleman here from Georgia State.
Artie says, of course it should, as far as you naming a Troy Trojan as a player of the week. But yeah, there was definitely an argument, and I did think about it. But, I always say, the victory or the loss doesn't matter. But to me, this one actually did play an aspect in that, in turning me over to this one. But it also makes it, for the first time ever, since we've been doing this for 3 weeks, the first time ever a team has both the offensive and defensive player of the week is Kevin Swint. Luckily enough, I got to meet him down at Media Days. Just a hell of a dude. I told TJ, I was like, these are dudes we need to have on the show later for sure, because there's just a ton of fun. We were talking about food while we were down there. All of us like that aspect. So, yeah, just awesome to see him have this type of game. 8 total tackles, 5 of them solo, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 2 passes deflected. And one of those was real close to another interception. So a heck of a week, offensive and defensively, helped Georgia State get by Vanderbilt at home. Again, easily the biggest home victory for Georgia State thus far. So congratulations to Kevin Swint. You didn't have a Troy Trojan nominated for this one, did you, Troy?
No. This one definitely belongs to Mr. Swint. What an absolutely amazing performance. Look at all those numbers. If you're from the group of 5 and you're going to beat a P4 team, these are the kind of performances you have to have. I remember us getting them from Carlton Marshall. I'm sure you've got app guys running through your brain right now. But these are the things you have to have. Just special guys making special plays, big plays on big days. And this guy absolutely went out there and did that and made the victory possible. So congrats to him.
Absolutely. We appreciate those thoughts, and I echo what you said. When you need those big victories, these are the types of players that have to show up and get the job done. And again, Kevin Swint definitely did that on Saturday. Okay, TJ's not here, so I'm not going to play his little intro, but I am going to show what we would have done with these 3 clips had he be here. So we're going to play them out anyway, just to show you some clips from around the league. And Joe and I will tell you what we can of the play. But, Joe, how much football did you play?
Boy, just enough to know that I wasn't very good. My high school coach once said in the local paper, these boys got a lot of quit in them after we lost a game to a crosstown rival. So I won't be able to give you too much other than just what I've learned watching this sport for a long time.
Okay, well, we're going to play this once full speed, and then we'll slow it down for a second look. Keep your eye on Eli Wilson here, the tight end to the right side of the formation. Leaks out and totally uncovered, essentially. I mean, this one wasn't really difficult there, Joe, but, we'll slow it down just to see, I guess he just looks like he's going to throw some blocks on this. And, decides, no, I'm just going to squeak out here and get it done without having to throw a single block. And I'll just find myself in the back of the end zone to make the easy touchdown catch. Again, totally uncontested. I mean, I guess they just bit hard on the run. Is that what you'd say happened here?
Yeah. But one thing to definitely think about is with all this transfer portal stuff and NIL, one of the things that's so hard for schools at our level to keep are talented linemen. And you look at that play, and it's a short play, but you've got to have offensive linemen that can make that play work, because if not, what was an awesome touchdown just turns into a loss for, a loss of 5 or 6 yards.
Yeah, absolutely. Good call there. Ben James. What's up, Dominic? What's up, Ben James, our resident Arkansas State. I love the fact that we have like certain people that come and rep for their team each week. I love that. And obviously Joe does that pretty well as well. For those of you who have not tuned into an episode of Troy Boys, literally you're missing out. One of the best Sunbelt podcasts out there. Definitely at the top of my listening list. And speaking of Troy, we're going to check out a play from a guy that Joe may have just talked about. Joe, I'm going to let you take this one away. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Iowa's going to do what they do best, which is punt. And they're going to get rid of the ball. Unfortunately for them, it's going to go to Devontae Ross. Devontae Ross finds the edge here. He finds the numbers, which is what Saban always talks about. And after that, it's just afterburners. There's nothing you're going to do. He's like inflation. You can't catch him. He's just that fast. And you can see how excited Troy is to know they're about to go into the locker room up 4 points on these guys from Iowa. Really, really a very impressive, return from him, just the way he followed his blockers, but also an impressive, play by all of his teammates. You saw the guy there at the beginning of the return who's standing up with his hands out so he doesn't get called for blocking the back. Those kind of things are crucial. So excellent play by the whole special teams unit.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, at some point, that's not what you teach because speed can't be taught. And that's what his biggest weapon is, and just ran away from the defenders at the end there. Okay, Joe, we'll talk about this now at just a little bit before we see this play. So 28-3 before they really got the scoring going in Arkansas State's favor here at the end to make this a 10-point game to close it out. We're going to see that last touchdown with 22 seconds left. An impressive touchdown here as we watch this one play out again in full speed first time around. And to note, Jalen Rayner is not the quarterback at this point. Timmy McClain is actually who makes this great play here. Looks like he's going to be bobbled up in the backfield, gets it out to a wide receiver in space, and then a dive to get into the end zone there. I'm trying to remember. I don't think they even ruled it a fumble. I think he was ruled that he got in on that first attempt. So,
that play. The quarterback makes a great play, but to be honest, this play is like a petting zoo at the base of Mount Everest. It's all about the yak. You know what I mean? Like he gets the guy the ball. Not that I'm not even sure he's got a first down where he catches the ball. But then the receiver makes it happen. Great vision. Great speed as a ball carrier, and just kind of a force of will to make the score. Great job by the quarterback prolonging the play, but even better job by the receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the 3 plays of the week there, at least as we chose them. So we will now jump into the week 4 preview. We're not going to be long-winded here, but we do want to give you a look at what's coming up this weekend. And it starts off Thursday night with Joe's favorite team. I'm talking about App State, not South Alabama. You thought I was going to go one way with that. You thought wrong, Joe. But anyway, South Alabama Jaguars coming off their 87 to 10, right? 87 to 10. Yeah, 87-10 victory over Northwestern State. I don't think this game's gonna go that same way, but they travel up to Boone, up on the mountain for a Thursday night showdown on ESPN. So no matter what cable you have, you probably get this one. I don't know what to make of this, Joe. I think you said you had more confidence one direction than another. Even as an App State fan, as you see the jersey behind me here, I'm nervous for this one. I just don't know what to make of App State. Right? They got the FCS victory. Fine, great. Don't learn a whole lot. They got the game against Clemson, get demolished, just never, ever once in that game from start to finish. And then this past weekend, I was there to take the game in 16-0 early. You end up winning the game 21-19. So you kind of shut them down after that big first quarter they had. But I don't know if that helps me understand where App State is. And now I'm not so sure I know exactly where South Alabama is either. But I know they have some weapons, and I know the secondary on both teams has been susceptible. So share your thoughts as even more of an outsider than me for this specific matchup, if you would.
Yeah, I tell you how I would feel if I were you, I think, is that ECU win means a whole lot more than anything that team from Mobile has done. They lost to North Texas. They lost to Ohio. Gio Lopez is this year's volunteer as tribute for the Jaguars. He's going to play quarterback. He's only completing 60% of his passes. I wouldn't expect huge improvement, on the mountain. Amarion Fortenberry at cornerback has looked really good. He's had 10 tackles, 2 interceptions. But you have to look at the competition again. App State, again, mixed bag, but that win against ECU, I think, is huge. Joey Aguilar is having the opposite of the kind of day that he had when he came to Troy to try to win a conference title, which means he's actually having a good season at quarterback. However, his 964 yards do have to be judged against the fact that his completion rating is 58% and he's already thrown 2 picks. So, not playing all that well. Thomas Davis from Valdosta, Georgia, has been a bit of a menace for the Mountaineers. He has 2.5 sacks and a forced fumble so far this year. I think what this one comes down to is the fact that App State has experience beating solid competition, and that team from Mobile just doesn't. And they also just gassed themselves running up and down the field, running up the score for no reason on a team that they shouldn't have. So the line on this one is at -7.5. Borrow your daddy's hammer and hammer App State and the points because I think they win and they win big.
Okay. Well, one thing that I was comfortable with hammering was the 62.5 over under, because the secondaries are both susceptible from what I've seen so far. And you've got quarterbacks on both sides that can sling it. And Gio Lopez also being that big dual threat. Obviously, Aguilar can run the ball as well. He doesn't do it all that often, but he is a threat when you give him wide open space to take advantage of. So I'm putting up an over bet on the 62.5 points. I think we're going to see some fireworks on Thursday night. But I'm tuning into this one, even if I wasn't a fan of either team, because I think we're going to see some really good quarterback play on both sides and want to see what happens here. Also, Bothwell, the running back for South Alabama, seems to be heating up. Obviously, padded the stats a little bit this past weekend, but still, averaging over a first down per carry. Only 23 carries on the season so far, but an impressive stat line so far. Okay, big noon kickoff. Marshall going to the Horseshoe against Ohio State. This one kicks off again, as the title said, big noon kickoff, literally at 12 noon or 11 a.m. Joe time, as we like to say, against number 3 Ohio State. So Marshall's gone in. They've beaten a team like Notre Dame in the past. Obviously, Notre Dame wasn't ranked as high as 3. Probably not thought of as good as this Ohio State team. In fact, not probably. They weren't thought of as good as this Ohio State team is. As a lot of people think Ohio State will be there at the end of a 12-team or a 4-team or a 2-team CFP probably. What chance, if any, do you give the Marshall Thundering Herd in this one on Saturday, Joe?
Boy, slim to none, and Slim just went back to the frat house. You know what I mean? Marshall beat, just a nobody in Stony Brook. They lost to Virginia Tech. They played a couple of quarterbacks. It looks like the winner is going to be a great quarterback named Stone Early. But I'm not sure how long he's going to keep that job with a 44% completion rate. That won't even get you a degree in interdisciplinary studies down there in Mobile. The young Mike Green on the D-line has had 3.5 sacks in the year, so he's been very active. The Buckeyes, however, they love Mississippi State transfer Will Howard. He's an excellent player. And senior Lathan Ransom has 11 tackles on the year. Ohio State is the kind of team that they're supposed to be. Marshall is the kind of team that they've just been since they've joined the Sun Belt. I think we expected to get a better product than we did. We ordered Amazon Marshall and we got TMU Marshall when we expanded the conference. So the line right now is Ohio State -40. I don't like that line because I think Ohio State holds up. I don't think Ohio State sees any reason to run the score up on Marshall. So I would, if I had to, I would take Marshall plus the points, but I still think Ohio State wins very comfortably by 28, 35 points, something like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'm hoping it's closer than that. I don't know if I'd be strong enough or strong-willed enough to put money on this game at all of any sort. But the X factor to me is, one, if Stone Earl plays the whole game or Braylon Braxton comes in and gives them a different look. Like you said, probably you do see two quarterbacks in this game. One running back that you will see throughout this game is A.J. Turner, who's been really impressive to me so far this season. But I'm going to say it's going to be hard for him to find the century mark against a defense like Ohio State. I mean, this team is well thought of for a reason. As well as A.J. Turner has run and did run against Virginia Tech, I'm not quite sure he's going to have that type of weekend against Ohio State. Now, if he does, that gives them a fighting chance, and I think it could keep them well within the spread of 40 points that Ohio State is favored by. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go crazy here and say Marshall stands any chance to win this game because I don't believe they will. Ben James is agreeing with that, saying Marshall will only score 3 or 6. Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the question. This Ohio State defense is for real. You know, how close they were to beating Michigan and being the Big Ten representative last year, but obviously unable to do that. Okay.
And Dominic, you got to take that comment seriously because he's an Arkansas State fan, so he's very used to only scoring 3 or 6 points. Okay, so he knows what he's talking about.
It's true. They always have great kickers down there at Arkansas State. They even have hype videos for kickers made and punters too. Punters. They pride themselves on the kicking stuff. Do they? I don't even think Arkansas State has a soccer team. They need a men's soccer team. They love it there in Jonesboro.
Boy, they need something. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. All right. Saturday, again, this game also at noon or 11 a.m. Joe time on the ACC network. James Madison, for the second or third time within the last decade, at least, if not even shorter time frame than that, they travel down to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Spoiler alert, that's where I'm broadcasting from now. So I do plan to try and take this game in. I don't know, though, because James Madison not looking all that impressive as they were the past 2 seasons just yet. Do they have the ability? Maybe. Do they have the ability against a UNC team? I'm not so sure. But I also don't think this UNC team's all that great. So, Joe, I'm going to throw it over to you and see what your thoughts are on this one.
Yeah, you know, JMU has beaten a nobody in Charlotte. They nearly lost to Gardner-Webb. And so, of course, that means that their fans are all over Facebook planning a national title parade because they're the most entitled brats in the entire conference. Alonzo Barnett III has played very middle of the road. Good news for JMU fans is that they have a great starting quarterback they can go to. Bad news is that he's playing in San Marcos for the Texas State Bobcats. Jacob Dobbs has been explosive at linebacker. He's got 15 tackles, 1 sack. UNC hasn't really played anyone either. Connor Harrell is their quarterback. He's from my hometown of Alabaster, Alabama. Unfortunately, he has had a mediocre season so far. Ben James, you couldn't be wronger if you were hitting a football with a golf club, son. Amari Campbell has been a rock star on D. He had 17 tackles and 2 sacks so far. Wow. So absolutely great. UNC is favored minus 10.5. You know, I'm not giving financial advice. I'm in the state of Alabama. I can't gamble if I wanted to. So I'm not telling you to empty out your IRA and go down to the books and put it on UNC plus the points. But if I could tell you that, I might, because I think they are going to beat JMU like they stole something, because I think JMU are Kentucky fraud chickens. I do not think that they're very good, and I think we're going to find that out against UNC.
Okay, I hear that argument. I think this one could go UNC's way easily too. I do think it's a possibility, but I also think that there's an aspect to this. So Max Johnson, the starting quarterback for UNC, gets injured in that first game against Minnesota, out seemingly the rest of the year. I think there was some news that came out that said he may return towards the end of the season. At that point, you're probably not coming back to be the starter, big guy. Sorry. But Connor Harrell takes over And honestly, 57.1% completion rated so far. I mean, I'm not blown away by that. Has he had a ton of time at the number one spot? No. But I think it's an X factor that could become something in this game. However, Omarion Hampton's still there. Like I think you already said there too, Joe. And he's put up 416 yards so far this season, 3 touchdowns. He's run the ball well against App State in the past. He is a just bowling ball when you've got smaller defensive guys going against him. You know, most of those guys in the secondary, if he gets to that second line of defense, you're not taking him down easily. And I think that factor there could be the biggest one as far as why UNC wins this one at home. If JMU can get some good quarterback play, the defense holds fairly well, and the JMU running back committee continues to evolve and develop and get these guys that had big expectations. Oh, by the way, JMU running back room just includes one UNC transfer who could become a little bit of a factor in this one as well. So I don't know. George Pettaway is the name, by the way. I had to look it up because I couldn't remember his name, but he is the leading rusher for JMU at this point as well. So he could have a game against his old team here and look to have a big one if possible. Yeah, I don't know. The running backs are the ones that I'm focusing on in this game, and it's leaning towards UNC at this point because I think Omarion Hampton beat out George Pettaway at the running back position for a reason here. So I think you're going to see the better running back on that side. I'll favor UNC in this one. If I had to put money on it, I probably would put money on the 10.5 being covered. But it wouldn't shock me if it was a little bit closer than that. All right. The battle for Louisiana. The Ragin' Cajuns play host to Tulane. Joe, you know anybody on the coaching staff over there at Tulane?
Hey, buddy, anybody? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
Oh, perfect. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. I thought you were just thinking who you were trying to come up with that may have coached Tulane at some point. I don't know.
Oh no, I don't need to think very long about that at all. That's not good. You ready for me to tell you what I think about this game?
Yeah, let's go. You started off on this one.
Lala hasn't really proven anything. We talked about this earlier. Beat Grambling, beat Kennesaw. Ben Woolridge is back for the Cajuns, a.k.a. Tim Riggins from Friday Night Lights, back where he belongs, playing for Lala. Casey Osei, sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, has been an absolute beast at linebacker. He's got 19 tackles already. I don't feel the need to break down anything about that team in New Orleans or Benedict Arnold, their coach. I wish them nothing but failure and agony. Tulane is favored by 3 points. I think Lala, imbued by the vibes and the winds of justice and righteousness, come out and win a game against a foe that deserves to lose. So I am riding with Lala on Saturday for the upset.
Yeah, I like your thinking there. I think the reason people are favoring Tulane in this one is they're only 1-2. So got to question why they're favored, right? Well, they played number 17 Kansas State and number 15 Oklahoma. Sorry, that text was really small, so I had to look over a little closer. And they have done fairly well in both games, but they haven't been winning, and their only win is against Southeast Louisiana. Oh, just the team that Southern Miss also beat. Now they did beat them worse, 52-0. But this one at home, we know the Cajuns going through a stadium renovation. Not going to be as many people there as possible with Tulane, probably bringing some fans, right? I don't know. Joe, do you know anything about Tulane's fan base? Do they travel at all? I mean, they're a smaller private institution, so I wouldn't assume they have a massive fan base that travels, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I know when the few times I've gotten involved with conversations about, at least with Lala and Lama fans, they've complained about their fans making the choice on Saturdays to go be part of the SEC experience that they can have in Baton Rouge. I don't know if that happens to Tulane or not. Obviously they're in New Orleans. So, the one thing I'm a Miami Marlins fan when it comes to baseball, which is not something I admit very openly. But, one of the problems the Marlins have is that if you wake up on a Saturday morning in Miami, there's a whole lot of fun things you can do, and going to a baseball game is way, way, way down that list. And so if you're a college kid and you wake up in New Orleans on a Saturday morning, boy, howdy, there are a lot of fun things you can do that don't involve sitting in a football stadium and certainly don't involve driving to Lafayette, Louisiana. So I don't know that I'd expect them to bring a whole bunch of people. But also you have the alum diaspora, they're Tulane graduates who I'm sure are all over that part of the state. So I think they'll make a little bit of a difference, but Lala's fan base holds up on their own. In my experience, they always show out. So I don't think Tulane's going to get a warm welcome.
Yeah, I don't assume they do. And I think the one thing that you're going to see, like you said, defensively is where Lala, as you call them, will take maybe and hopefully some advantage in this game. They are scoring more points per game. Again, those are skewed statistics this early into the season, as they've only played Grambling and Kennesaw State. Neither team all that impressive thus far, but only allowing each of those teams to score 10 points against you is the impressive stat line, because let's be honest, this college football usually see a little bit more scoring in some of those early season games when they're trying to figure things out defensively. So impressive there. But Chris over at Sports Bites Podcast said they did return a bunch of tickets to Norman. That's Tulane there. And then Ben James says Tulane fans travel well. So it's either they didn't want to put the time, money, and effort into getting all the way to Norman, Oklahoma, or Ben James sees them a little bit more locally, and they do travel well when it's not too far, which this game isn't too far. So maybe you see it. What is it? I think it's like 2 hours at worst from New Orleans to Lafayette.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that far.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't think so. I've done that drive. I just, can't remember off the top of my head exactly how far it is. And Chris will be at the UAB Tulane game. It'll be interesting to see how many fans travel to Birmingham. Yes, it will.
I can guarantee you, my friend Chris, there will be more of their fans than UAB fans, because UAB fans don't exist. So just go ahead and whatever. If you can find a bet on that, bet the farm, okay? Because they're not showing up unless it's a USFL Birmingham Stallions game. You can count on that.
He actually covers them. He covers them. So yeah.
Hashtag giddy up.
There you go. Yeah. All right. A little double hitter there for Chris while he's commenting on the show. All right, we finally got out of the noon window here. Saturday, ESPN Plus, 2 p.m., 1 Joe time. We've got the team that kept it within 10 against Michigan, the Arkansas State Red Wolves, traveling to Ames, Iowa, to face number 20, Iowa State. Joe, this Iowa State team just got done beating Iowa the week before you guys played them, and then you guys put Iowa up to a tough test. Does that mean, with our mirror images of everything that's going to happen so far, because Arkansas State kept it within 10, because you guys played Iowa close, and Iowa State got by Iowa, now we're going to get this matchup, and it's going to be close? That's exactly what it means, right?
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think your calculus might be right on there. I think Arkansas State has had a surprising season. I think that they have been better than I expected them to be. I've been, like most Sunbelt fans, I've been getting used to Arkansas State just underperforming, not performing well. Jalen Rayner he's an absolute threat at quarterback. The problem is he's also very aggressive, so he's thrown as many touchdowns as he has interceptions. Justin Parks is a senior safety from Gardendale, Alabama. He's been disruptive. He has 24 tackles and a forced fumble on this young season. Wow. Iowa State beat North Dakota, and they beat Iowa by 1 point. So I don't know that there's anything on that resume that makes you want to give them a gold medal. QB Rocco Becht, great quarterback name, has looked good. He's got a 70% completion percentage. So that means two things. One, he's a pretty good quarterback. Two, they're throwing high percentage throws. So you're going to have to stay competitive with that. And J.R. Singleton on the defensive line has made his presence known. 7 tackles, 2 sacks. Iowa is a 22-point favorite in this game. That would tell you the wise guys in Vegas, they want you to believe Arkansas State has no chance. I'm going to go ahead and look, if they prove me wrong on this one, I'm telling you, Red Wolves, this will be the last time I ever do it. But I'm going to believe the Red Wolf fairy tale that we get told every year that this year is the year. I'm picking Arkansas State. I think Arkansas State upsets the Cyclones and wins a big game for the Sun Belt.
That would be big, yes. And I think you're not wrong here. So they just got experience against a hell of a defensive team in Michigan, right? We knew Michigan's offense wasn't great, but it was efficient thus far. Well, they forced that Michigan offense into 3 turnovers in the form of 3 interceptions. Again, Michigan's quarterback, is not going to be blowing anybody away with how he throws the ball or his statistics throughout this season. But again, so far this season, he had been fairly efficient before that game Saturday. Cyclones, like you said, Rocco Becht throwing some passes that are getting completed rather easily. You've got to think a lot of that's probably those short underneath checkdowns, like you said, high percentage type passes, because he's really not thrown for that much. He's thrown 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's only been sacked once. So, maybe you look at that offensive line doing well, but then you look at their best rusher on the season, not even 100 yards on the season yet. He's at 94. So what does this team do really well? It must be defense, because it sure as hell isn't the offense that's going to impress anybody. So, yeah, I think you're right. If Arkansas State can play a little bit better than what they did against Michigan, I think they stand a hell of a chance to go in there to Ames, Iowa, and upset an Iowa State team who also has a history and tradition of letting one get away, right, Joe? I mean, how many times have we seen Iowa State be like the little Cinderella early on in the season only to lose to some random conference team that they weren't supposed to lose to?
Especially after just beating Iowa. I mean, that's part of the problem. And I've heard different people complaining about this, and I don't like it either. You start putting these rivalry games closer to the start of the season. And one thing you do is you're going to give an automatic letdown. These are kids. These are 19-year-old kids. And so maybe, Ben James and the boys are all going to tell me that they were Mensa members by the time they were 19. I was an idiot when I was 19, okay? And emotionally, I was definitely just riding the wave. And so if you had built me up for something like a rivalry game and we had won by 1 point on the other team's field, I'm checked out for 14 days, Coach. I'm drinking Busch Lights and just eating just corn, straight corn, raw corn, because I'm an Iowa State student, and pork rinds or something, and just having a great time. So I think one of the problems with bringing these rivalry games so early in the season is you start to have letdowns. These guys are not locked in the way they were when they were about to play Iowa. They don't have Iowa coming to town. They're not going to play Iowa. They're going to play Arkansas State, a school they've never heard of, from a state they've probably never heard of, with a logo they've never seen before in their lives. So I think Arkansas State sneaks in there, and all of a sudden, before the night is over, little does Iowa State know, they've got the Ring of Fire playing, the waterfalls are coming down all over the stadium, and it's a great night for the Scarlet Puppers of Arkansas State.
There you go. And happy birthday early to Ben James, who will be 19 on Saturday. So maybe they'll get you a victory. That'd be one heck of a birthday party there, man. Chris is telling us Campbell is a terrible human being. All right. I don't know the history behind that, but I'll take your word for it. Sure. And Joe is riding the wave, just not the SOTS wave.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I'm going to let you.
Yeah, the SOTS, that's Sound of the South. That's our marching band. And they try to start the wave when games are still very competitive. And so I go after the marching band often on our podcast, and they do not appreciate it. And so obviously one of their members has crept out of the band room and is using Wi-Fi to get to me here. So I will be reporting you to Field Director Dr. Mark Walker. So, you better just go ahead and let it go.
Oh, he also says, wise guys in Vegas tempting you with the gas station bets.
It's absolutely true. Yeah, that is a true fact. I'm looking at a lot of these right now, and I'm thinking my investment strategy might be changing for my retirement account, because I'm seeing a lot of this stuff looks good to me.
Yeah, there you go. Well, either we're crazy wrong or we're going to look like geniuses after this weekend. Another game at 2 p.m., ESPN Plus this time. Coastal Carolina has one of those matchups that we are not going to see much going forward in the future, at least from the sounds of it, with a power team coming to their place. If you want to call Virginia a power, it's like terrible football there historically. But anyways, Virginia Cavaliers travel to Conway, South Carolina to take on Ethan Vasco and the undefeated Coastal Carolina Chants, or COVID Carolina Chickens, as Joe likes to call them. I don't know. I'm favoring Coastal in this one. I just don't think Virginia is very good. You can tell me that Virginia's 3-0 coming in. I'd still probably favor Coastal, because even if Virginia was somehow good early in the season, I wouldn't trust them from what history has shown me. JMU just beat them the other year. I'm just not blown away by what Virginia ever puts on the football field. I have been impressed with what we've seen out of Coastal Carolina. The running back room has been pretty good. Ethan Vasco has been pretty good. Yeah, they played a little bit closer of a game than I would have expected against Temple, but it's kind of a weird place. You're going into a pro stadium. There's not a lot of people there playing a team that's winless. I don't know. Maybe you have that moment like you were saying with Iowa State having Arkansas State come in. You're like, yeah, we should just hammer these guys, whatever type of thing. So, yeah, I'm actually taking Coastal Carolina to win in this one. The line is actually favoring Virginia at 3.5. So Coastal is the home underdog, which is a little bit rare. But what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think this is a simple question, and it's so early in the season. You get these weird things where it's not actually about the two teams that are playing. So the question is, who do you think is better, Temple or Wake Forest? And there's no right. In fact, there are only wrong answers to that question, because neither of those teams are very good. I happen to think that Wake Forest is probably a little bit better than Temple. I don't think in a way that is huge, but I think in a way that is enough that I'm going to pick Virginia. I saw Virginia as a 3-point favorite. I would take Virginia to win this ball game.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, they are favored, which I was actually a little surprised about. 2-1 coming in. I have to bring it up because I can't remember off the top of my head who the heck Virginia played to start the season. A win over Richmond. Okay.
Yep. Not bad. Maryland.
Yeah. And Maryland's, I don't know what to make of Maryland just yet. I mean, they're not a ranked team, so there's that. But, Wake Forest getting by them. I mean, I will say this. I don't think what we saw out of Coastal Carolina against Temple is the real Coastal team. So that may be skewing some thoughts for some people across the board there. And, again, that was on the road. This one's at home in the friendly confines of the stadium there in Conway. Don't remember off the top of my head. Brooks Stadium, that's it. But, yeah, I'm just thinking I still like Coastal in this one. I think their fans are going to get up for this one. And, unfortunately, it's not a night game. I'd favor Coastal even more heavily if it was a night game. I've seen what they've done on night games against App State, being there in person, how rowdy and crazy it could be. I'm still taking Coastal to cover. I don't know about the points. 55.5 total. I feel like that's a little high for this game, maybe.
Oh, yeah. That's way high.
So, yeah, maybe we'll stay under that point total. But give me Coastal Carolina. I'm staying with the Sunbelt guys. Never in my life have I expected Virginia to go out and do something, right? So I don't expect them to get it done this Saturday either. It's a pass-through state for a reason. There's really nothing else there. We'll see. Saturday, a little bit later of a kickoff at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Joe time on ESPN Plus. We've got Southern Miss traveling to Jacksonville State. I don't know how. I mean, what kind of fan base does Jacksonville State have there, Joe?
A dumb one. Jacksonville State is Troy's original rival. We used to play for the old school bell.
Okay.
And they have just been, ever since we left them behind in the FCS, they've just been chasing after, daddy, 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 why'd you leave me, daddy? And now finally they made it back. They've crawled into the husk of the Conference USA. And now all of a sudden we're supposed to respect them. And they're going to play Southern Miss. I mean, can the earth just open up and swallow this stadium and take both of these teams into oblivion? Southern Miss hasn't beaten anyone that matters. Jack State hasn't beaten anyone at all. They won't beat you in the first quarter. They won't beat you in the second quarter. They won't beat you at halftime because their band is terrible too. Give me Southern Miss. They're going to go ahead and do away with that 6-point spread for Jack State. Southern Miss is going to win the game outright. It won't be by much because they're not very good either, but they will win and return balance to the force.
All right, I'll take it out. What is Cooter Brown? Is that a bar in Birmingham, Joe?
I'm guessing maybe Cooter Brown's is in Jacksonville or in Oxford. Okay. I don't hang out there because my credit score isn't below 500, but I don't
know. They're not smart because they don't have a school bell currently to know when it's time for class.
That's very true. Yeah. Never been a big fan of class over there in Jack State.
There you go. It is apparently a rib place in Jacksonville, and NK Blazers letting us know Cooter Brown's and Struts is pretty good, though. Not going to lie. I think their only bar is Brothers. Is that one familiar to you at all, Drew?
No, like I said, do not drink there. I would just keep driving through. I would not spend my time there. Gotcha. Fried pickles do sound pretty good, though.
Yeah, I won't turn away a fried pickle. Never have I ever. So give me some ranch, a little delicacy of the South. I'll dip that in there and eat those things up all day. I'm with you. I think Southern Miss has a lot to prove. I think, as you can see from my rankings earlier, I have them at the very bottom. TJ's got them very close to the bottom. I think they have a lot to prove to a lot of people. Will Hall has a lot to prove, right? It kind of upset the apple cart with some of his statements about the Czech game up there in Kentucky. And I think these players are tired of losing, right? They did have one victory. It was over an FCS opponent. This one would help them get back into the right direction. But like you said, I don't see them winning by a lot. Jacksonville State, although being a huge disappointment at 0-3, was a preseason favorite to be in competition for the Conference USA Championship. But we know now that's probably not likely to happen unless they go on some heck of a run. But, statistically, I can see why this one favors Jacksonville State plus being at home. But when you look at that 6-point spread, you think, you usually get about 3 points for being at home. So a 3-point spread game, I think Southern Miss could take that one. And I hope to see them do it against another Conference USA team. All right. Joe, I know you never heard of this team on the screen right now, but they're taking on the Florida A&M Rattlers. And I'm sure you think this one's going to be a barn burner. So let's hear your thoughts on your Troy boys taking on the Rattlers of Florida A&M.
Yeah, Troy walks into the game 27-point favorites, latest numbers I've seen. Every quarterback that Troy has put on the field this year, which has been 3, have looked good. I've even joked that Coach Parker could put me out there in a jersey, and I'd probably be throwing dimes, it seems like. Devontae Ross certainly looked special last week. Jordan Stringer finally kind of had his coming out party on defense. He has 14 tackles and 1 sack this season. FAMU fans are very happy with their QB, Daniel Robinson. He has a 68% completion percentage this season. Their defense, they call it the dark cloud defense. Not quite what it was last year. But guys like Gardner on the D-line have 6 tackles and 1.5 sacks. They're going to be a problem for Troy. We've got a young offensive line. We've got guys hurt. Some of our only seniors on the O-line are hurt. So we have kind of new guys that are going in to fill some holes. Overall, I think Troy took a lot of positive momentum out of that Iowa game. And so I think you see us come into this game, take an early lead, and go ahead and control possession and get out of there. I don't think that we cover that spread. I think 27 is big. I think Coach Parker gets up 3 scores, and then lets the running backs just kind of 3 yards in a cloud of dust and run the clock out and get out of there with a win. But I do believe that Troy wins the ball game.
Yeah, that one's not hard for me. I agree with you. Is Eli Russ one of the guys that's unfortunately injured? I think I saw.
Correct. Yeah, from Oklahoma, plays center. Has had a lower extremity injury for the past 2 weeks.
Jeez. Is there a timetable for him that you've heard of?
I haven't heard of one. We heard that last week that he would be probable. We also heard that Goose would be probable for last week, and neither of them played. Goose was there. He made the trip, but he was in street clothes. They didn't show Eli if he was on the sidelines, but that could be because he either didn't go or people don't show offensive linemen on the sideline. So, so we don't know if he was there or not. But it'll be interesting to see if he's there. I think then maybe you get into the dangerous territory of maybe we do cover because we'll have kind of our full complement back. But it's going to be fascinating for Troy fans even to see who we march out at quarterback. Goose looked good, and then he got hurt. Matt Caldwell is a walk-on. He's not even on scholarship, and he's looked really good. And then we took out Tucker Kilcrease, who's been on the roster for years and has always kind of been the bridesmaid, never the bride. And he just threw an absolute dime to Devontae Ross when he got on the field. So be very interesting to see who gets out there and plays.
Nice. Can understand that. NK Blades are coming back saying players are dropping without Rusty on staff. Hopefully new strength and conditioning coach improves. I will say too, as App State fans, we did go through a strength and conditioning change, and it does seem to make a big difference. So
for sure.
As they get used to the new staff and what's going on, and the staff gets used to them and what they need, you will see some stuff. We talked about it a little bit on Sunday with Marv and the wrap-up show. I'm not scared of what Troy needs to do to get things done. You've got the culture and tradition and history in place. I think it's just rounding everybody in this new regime and these players back together. I think it's going to come along. I mean, anybody who's looking at this Troy team and saying, oh, they're out of the chase at 0-3. Conference play hasn't started yet. We've seen what Troy's done after 1 and 2 starts and ending up in the championship game. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's not easy to make those things happen, but I do think that Troy is not whatsoever out of any kind of race over there on the west side as of yet. And that's not me just blowing smoke because Joe's here. We did talk about that Sunday. So I really do think Troy has the pedigree to return to form and be at the top of this conference once again, but we'll see if that happens. Caldwell impressed me a lot. Kilchrist came out of hiding and didn't miss a beat. And then Joe's favorite podcast that he definitely checks out every week, the Jag Nation radio show. When was the last time Troy started 0-3 on the year? I don't know. Joe, do you know that? I mean, it's got to have been forever ago, right?
No, unlike you boys down there in Mobile, we don't study failure. So I have no idea when that was. I also don't know when the last time we had a practice facility collapse on top of our players, but I know that y'all had that happen. So, it just whatever. I mean, whatever it takes. I'm glad you guys feel good. What I want to tell you guys, I hope you're still listening to Jag Radio. Even as bad as we might have looked in some of these early games, we are going to come down there midweek, and we're going to absolutely destroy your season. And I wouldn't even let Gio Lopez play. Okay, if I were you, I would hide him in some building that y'all hardly ever use, like the library, because we are going to absolutely destroy you. Yeah, did it? Yeah, just Google it. You can Google, right? You'll have internet. You'll be fine. Go down to Foosackly's. I think they have Wi-Fi, and just Google about when your practice facility collapsed, because it was built on fan support. But I really appreciate you guys coming out. I don't want this to be negative. I want this to be fun for you too. And you guys are welcome on the show anytime except for never.
Oh, we love it. Every week is hate week here.
I love my fans. I love my fans. That's all I'm saying. I want everybody to be happy.
Oh, yeah. AK Blazer comes back and says, I will take 100%. I will 100% take a 3-game down period over a 3-year down period again. Yeah, I mean, I would do the same thing too. Troyverse / will be our chance for revenge against Major Applewhite from 2018 postseason and Jag Nation Radio. Love you too, Joe.
Can't fake the food, boys. Enjoy yourself. You need to get to sleep. It's a school night.
Oh, gosh. Great stuff. I love it every time. All right, moving on. Georgia Southern travels to Ole Miss, number 5 in the country for the night. Well, the first of 2 night games with big possibilities, but what I would consider very small chances. Unless, Joe, you've got different feelings on these last 2 matchups. Yeah, exciting to start off with, especially if somehow a Sunbelt team jumps out to an early lead. And J.C. French has looked great for Georgia Southern so far, not thrown a single interception. First of all, does that change this weekend? You think the Ole Miss defense forces him into a bad look or something he doesn't want to do and he throws his first one? Or what do you think might happen there in the Grove? Is that what they call it, right?
Yeah, the Grove is where they tailgate. Vaught Hemingway is where they play. I tell you, buddy, it's you and I with these last 2 games, the way we've positioned them, we might as well be reading a will at a wedding, okay? Because everybody's been having a good time, and now we're just going to destroy it unless you have some real miracle pick on your mind, because I sure don't. Look, Ole Miss is the real deal. Do I think Ole Miss could cause them to throw their first pick? Absolutely. I think Ole Miss could cause them to throw their first 3 or 4 picks. They are a really good squad. Lane Kiffin is exactly where he wants to be. Not only is he winning, but he is manufacturing this controversy with Wake Forest, where Wake Forest canceled the contract after they were beaten by Ole Miss, and he loves that kind of thing. That gets him going. So, I mean, you're going to see a team absolutely ready to play in Oxford. It's going to be 193,000 degrees. So Georgia Southern's going to have to deal with that. Ole Miss is a really good team. Georgia Southern beat Nevada by 3 points. Right now the line is Ole Miss minus 35. I am picking Ole Miss. If I had to, I would pick Ole Miss and the points. I think Ole Miss just absolutely runs away from Georgia Southern in this game.
Ooh, okay. The one thing I'll say is 35 sounds like a lot to me after what we've seen Georgia Southern's offense do to Boise State. Obviously, that was first game of the year and some things to work out. And obviously, Ole Miss's defense is better than what Boise State puts on the field. So you have to take that into regard. But I've liked what I've seen from Georgia Southern's offense. So I think they can hang on early. If they can keep this within reach at the half, then, all due respect at that point. Like you said, Ole Miss is going to be too much. I think Ole Miss is quite literally one of the top 3 best teams in the country at this point. And I don't know if they get all the credit that they deserve. Lane Kiffin, is a hell of a coach, and he's going to know how to get his guys ready for this one. Jalen White pictured there. I mean, he's going to really have to have a heck of a good game, and he hasn't had the biggest of games as of yet. Gotten into the end zone quite a bit once they get down there. So expect him to tote the rock when they do get near the end zone at all. But I don't think that's going to be too often against this Ole Miss Rebels team. So I would say go with the Rebels if you're a Star Wars fan. All right. The nightcap, ESPN Plus. It got elevated to ESPN Plus. Look at this. No, I'm just kidding. 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. Joe time. Number one, Texas is hosting the booty. ULM Warhawks. Any chance, Joe, that this turns out to be not a victory? I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking if it's going to turn out to be a game.
No, absolutely not. The Cinderella story ends here, boys. That Jackson State isn't good. UAB isn't good. UL Monroe isn't good. They're going to go against a serious team. Texas is going to do what Texas does. They're going to break the Warhawks spirit, and they're going to send Brian Vincent and the boys back to the Bayou with a broken spirit, and they're going to hobble through the rest of the conference schedule, losing the way they always do, being the team they always are, having dreams about Terry Bradshaw. They're just not good. The line is Texas minus 44.5. Yeah. I don't know if I would take that just because I think Texas is going to get tired. Arch Manning is only going to want to, run so much. But Texas is going to win this game, and they're going to win by however many points they want to.
Yeah, unlike the other one, I'm not sure. I think, like I said, Georgia Southern could have some offense early against Ole Miss to kind of, hey, look at this, we might have a game. I don't think that lasts too long. That is not the same way I feel about this one. Great that the Warhawks are on a winning streak. Brian Vincent comes in, gets those first 2 game victories. But look at General Booty's statistics, okay? 19 of 30 on the season. 191 yards is all he's thrown for. 1 touchdown. 1. 0 interceptions. Okay. That's probably his best statistic if you're asking me honestly. He hasn't thrown a single pick yet. Their top running back, Hardy, he's looked good as far as the eye test is concerned. A lot of his runs are just straight up the gut, powering through the line. You ain't going to be able to do that against Texas. Only 161 yards on the season, just 2 touchdowns. I just don't think the offense is going to be anywhere near the ability that it would take to upset a Texas team that's quite literally the best in the country as of right now. And I don't think, Texas State defense is going to have any trouble stopping this offense. So, yeah, this one gets out of hand early and it gets ugly. And what was it? NK Blazer said Warhawks win this one by making it home alive.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's going to be rough. I hope I'm wrong, but I take the money and the points and money line and all the things of Texas. Give it all to me because I haven't seen enough out of this ULM team to make me think they are shockingly good. They are better than they were last year for sure, but the offense isn't explosive. I don't see some shocking. I would say this is the biggest upset in college football history if it happens. I'll go that far. This would blow me away if ULM would somehow come out with a victory over Texas.
For sure.
NK Blazer saying
all you hear about. College football final would just be a replay of this game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It absolutely would. And it would deserve to be if this shock of the world happens. And NK Blazer saying not to discredit ULM, they obliterated the Golden Lizards. Just don't think Texas will slack in their SEC early seasons. They came into the SEC revved up, ready to go, prepared, are now the number 1 team in the nation for a reason. And listen, they're on their second string quarterback who may just be better than their starter. And when I say that, you're probably flipping a coin to say who's better, right? Joe, I don't know if you have strong feelings on either of those 2 guys, but there's a pedigree that comes with the last name Manning for a reason.
Oh, and you heard the great stat. I think the greatest stat in sports this week is they clocked Arch Manning in the last game going 23.5 miles an hour. Tyreek Hill has not gone that fast this season.
That's crazy. I gotta say,
he ran like 60-something yards. He ran more in one run than Eli or Peyton ran combined in their two longest runs in the NFL.
Well, and I will say this: seeing highlights of him at a young age, I mean, there was an obvious difference in the Manning pedigree that those two did not get, that Arch seems to have gotten.
Right? Yeah,
it's not even close.
They just got unlucky. They had to play for the Colts and the Giants.
Yeah, and then they still turned those teams into some pretty good ones. So that's how good they were. But yeah, I mean, Arch Manning may just be the best of all of them, which is kind of crazy to think about. And we'll see if he continues to develop along the way. But yeah, that's going to round it out for us on this one. This was a lot of fun, Joe. I appreciate you coming on and previewing all these matchups with us, and certainly hope I'm wrong on a few of them, just because, we'd love to see some Sunbelt teams with some big upsets. We haven't had enough of them. Our biggest win is Georgia State over Vanderbilt at this point. And again, Vanderbilt ain't no powerhouse SEC team. So let's get a bigger one, put it on the board. Joe's boys almost did it in Iowa last week. That would have been the biggest one for sure. But Iowa's pretty good.
Sure.
So we'll see. Joe, any final words, anything else you want to share before we get out of here?
No, thanks everybody for joining. Thank you, Dom, for having me on. If you are interested in the brand of shenanigans that you've heard out of me all night long, please find the Troy Boys with a Z. We are everywhere that you listen to podcasts. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. Just search for Troy Boys with a Z. You'll find us. And we'd love to have you, even if you want to come. Even Jag Sports Radio, whatever they call themselves, y'all can come over and we can talk about how you've never beaten us in your new stadium that you've been playing in for like 23 years. We want everybody to come over, have a good time. We love the Sunbelt Conference podcasting community. The Sunbelt Syndicate has always been at the forefront of that. So really honored to be representing the Troy Boys here, and hope everybody enjoyed the show.
I know I did. I had a great time, and we didn't hear your saying here. So let's hear this.
Oh yeah. Well, so we end all of our shows the same way, and that is by saying, "Go Trojans," and God bless you, Blaise Brown.
There we go. See you guys on the wrap-up show.